Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been quite a while since we actually looked at another castable resin review for you guys. I think in no small part because castable resins aren't like, an Apple product or something where you have a predictable upgrade cycle. So we've sort of run out, as it were. However, a few weeks ago, Antinsky or Antinsky, forgive me from now until the end of the video because we haven't actually heard this company name phonetically, so I don't know how to pronounce it properly. But I've been calling it Antinsky. Shannon's been calling it Antinsky. They do have a cloud on their logo, so Antinsky does make some sense. But anyway, please forgive me for that. If you do know the name, could you put it down in the comments below? Anyway, Antinsky dropped into our DMs and asked if we would like to review their jewelry castable resin, and of course, we agreed. Antinsky is a reseller of many different brands and 3D printing tech in general, but they also have their own line of stuff as well. And it was on their website when things started to look a little bit weird. Hopefully the changes that we mentioned in this video will be made at some point in the near future now that they've been addressed, but we can only really report on what we observed during this review period. The Antinsky Castable, they did have a bit of a spelling error there on their website, features images that were pulled straight from the frozen print sample photos. They also resell frozen castable resin, by the way, which we pointed out in our initial correspondence, and they explained that they simply just don't have an art department for their website, so they kind of just pulled similar looking photos, which may be why some of the other parts of this product listing have some other issues. To their credit though, the Antinsky castable jewelry resin is purple, similar to that of the frozen material. However, unlike the frozen, this one is a semi-transparent as compared to the violet, which is more of an opaque color. On the thicker models that we printed, this isn't so much of an issue. It does show up as a nice solid purple, but on some of the really thin ones, it becomes abundantly clear that you can kind of see through it more. So from a quality control standpoint, the thinner ones are going to be a little bit harder to visually diagnose. Is this a good print? Can I move on to casting? That's usually one of the first critiques that I have of a castable resin is, can I even trust that the print quality is where I need it to be? Now the resin itself is incredibly low viscosity, meaning that you should be able to get away with faster retractions and lower light off delays, since the resin is able to flow and move away from the descending build plate a lot faster than a much thicker resin. If the exposure time could have been made lower somehow, in this case we're using about 5 seconds per layer, which is pretty normal for most castable resins on modern monochrome screens. This could have been an incredibly fast printing material, but unfortunately it's just kind of good. The overall print quality though is pretty good. You cannot see too many print lines, except on off-angled flat surfaces, specifically like on this open source ring. You can see some stair stepping, but on the sides specifically, it looks really, really smooth. So the print quality that we're getting off of this is excellent. I'm also seeing incredibly crisp details on all of the stone settings. Specifically, the micro pave one has about 0.5 millimeter diameter stone settings throughout the entire top, and each one of the holes appears perfectly fine. It's well defined. The details are great. At this stage, I would say this is looking very, very positive. The prints are also incredibly durable and very rigid, but also kind of flexible. You can see here on this support that it bends, but it doesn't break, even though I've bent it like all the way past almost a full rotation around 180 degrees. When you break off the supports though, they do tend to leave crater marks on your print. So that's a bit annoying. I would recommend using snips to take off supports rather than just breaking them off. Now for post-processing, they recommend washing this in isopropyl alcohol and then a 15-minute post-UV cure with a 30-watt UV curing machine. Now, our CW1 is 60 watts. We still did 15 minutes, and it's great. It's turned out really nice. They do mention that if there's a sticky surface or you see resin residue in surface details, that you can go back and repeat this wash cycle until it's all cleared out. So it's nice to know that this resin is a little bit more durable in the chemical sense as well, as some castables, specifically one of our favorites, doesn't handle being soaked in alcohol for very long without getting warped. You can visibly see a color change. This stuff just seems to be a little bit more durable chemically. So overall, not a terrible start. We've got durable prints. The quality is solid. We're not getting a lot of print lines. What else could go wrong? Moving on to the burnout and casting, things did get a little bit weird though. So wherever possible, we try to follow the guidelines set out by the company for getting a proper casting, as you, the consumer, would as well. Now, we're a little bit more knowledgeable, so we did do a few things a little differently this time, but we'll explain those later on in the video. So in their marketing, they do state for this product that it has minimal to no ash. They also state on the same listing that it has either 30% or 80% wax content. I couldn't tell you which one. My inclination looking at it, according to my own experience, would be that it's on the lower end. However, later on in the casting instructions, they do kind of backtrack a little bit, and they say that you have to remove impurities from the invested cavity with an air gun or and a vacuum cleaner. You have to blow air in to, I guess, stir up whatever might be left, the ash, and then suck it out with a vacuum cleaner. Not something that we've ever seen on any other marketing. Usually if you see this, it's kind of like it happened and the company didn't know about it. So it's kind of good. It's nice to see the honesty. It's good to see that they've done their due diligence and actually cast this material. It's just odd that they would have contradicting information. So whomever wrote the instructions is expecting to see ash residue in their castings. That's been established. If you have to mechanically remove it, ash is going to happen. So the advice to remove the ash with a vacuum might have come from their burnout recommendation unto itself, as it is a rapid burnout with a 4-hour timeline, which is incredibly fast. Our current burnout, our rapid burnout that we're experimenting with, which will be a later video, by the way, make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss that, is 6 hours, and it's working great with lots of different resin brands. 4 hours, cutting back 2 hours, kind of getting a little bit ridiculous. So I feel like they kind of shot themselves in the foot by putting it in a situation where it's going to produce ash. So we made the choice, based on our experience with other resins and just casting in general, that we were going to try a different burnout than this 4-hour rapid, as it was proven with 95% of virtually every casting resin we've tried. We went with the standard 12-hour burnout as recommended by R&R on their website for Plasticast investment. I can't stress enough, should be your baseline. After this, if you're trying to lower the hours, you really got to know what you're doing. And we'll talk about that more in another video, but this is the option that gives us the best possible outcome. The logic being, hopefully, that we would be giving this resin more time at the maximum hold temperature, meaning a more complete burnout, meaning we would have to deal with less ash, hopefully. I also skipped the vacuuming and the air gun thing because in our trials with rapid burnout process and stuff like that, lengthening the burnout and adding more oxygen into the kiln tends to produce a better burnout, a more clean burnout. So we felt that this was giving it the best possible chance, and if we had vacuumed the flasks out, then we wouldn't have been able to confirm one way or the other if there had been ash in the flask. So after this 12-hour burnout, we had some mixed results. On thinner items, the resin performed incredibly well, with only very minor surface issues. As this is a smaller object though, it's not really unexpected because there's not a whole lot of material there to produce ash in the first place. So, these did turn out really well. Now on the larger ones like the signet ring, or the skull, or this, the open source gear one, we had a more mixed bag of results. The standard signet ring came out quite well, all considered. This one is the heavy model in our slew of test prints. And this one is the one that usually produces the most issues regarding ash. And it's actually not terrible. There's a couple of little blemishes around the sides. There is some surface texture, but overall it's performed exceptionally well, all things considered. If I were personally going to be, cleaning up this ring and selling it, I might be able to get away with using like a porosity killer burr to fill in some of the surface texture, a light sanding here on the top where there's layer lines anyway, not a huge deal. But of course, everyone's standards are a little bit different, so you would have to be the judge if you want absolute perfection or a slight fixer-upper. I would put this in the slight fixer-upper category. Now on the open source signet ring, this one is just absolutely a rejection. This one's really bad. This one's full. The entire gear design on the top has been basically infilled. There's almost nothing left of the design. It's just kind of a shadow. There's tons of holes and pits where clearly ash was stuck, and I think there might actually still be ash in it. So this one is definitely a fail. This resin, I could safely say, is probably not going to work great for like casting miniatures, which is one reason why I didn't throw in this little dwarf guy. This one tends to be, one of the hardest models to cast because it's so heavy. So once again, when it comes to this Antinsky jewelry castable resin, some of the pieces turned out great. Smaller, the better. So if you're doing filigree stuff, maybe this is actually pretty good. If you're doing heavier models, you will have a lot of problems. So not the best result, and I can say with 100% certainty that if we had gone with the 4-hour burnout, it would be even worse. We would see probably ash on every single piece just as much as we would on the signet ring. And then something else to consider is that the vacuuming it out and using the air would not have fixed the infill. It might have just gotten rid of some of the pitting. So again, there's some problems here with this material. So given that you're going to see ash regardless, using a 12-hour burnout or a 4-hour burnout, it's probably more worthwhile simply in time savings alone to just go with the rapid burnout and remove the ash manually as recommended. At 63 USD for 500 grams, this is a 500 gram bottle, or about 12 cents a gram, we're almost ready to forgive this resin's shortcomings in the burnout, as it makes a pretty decent argument for being one of the cheaper resins that we've tried available on the market today. And so it might be worthwhile to jump through those extra hoops to blow out your flasks, do the vacuuming, take the extra time needed to get a better casting. This kind of prompts a question from us to you guys. What extra steps, whether it's curing in glycerin or blowing out your flask, what are you willing to do in order to get a good cast with cheaper materials? Let us know down in the comments below, because I'm really interested to hear from you guys. Again, would you prefer to have a higher cost, more premium resin that produces perfect results, or would you rather have a lower cost resin that requires you to do more work? For us, we probably won't be adding this material to our rotation, as we're casting very large jewelry these days, and this ash thing is kind of a deal breaker for us. But if you're doing filigree, thin wedding bands or something like that, maybe this would work for you. So that's all for this video. I hope you found it informative. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.